Welcome back to LeapTalk English, where real conversations help your English grow naturally. I'm Mary.
And I'm Albert. And Mary, I want to start today with something that sounds a little strange when you first hear it.
I'm already curious. Go ahead.
Have you ever noticed that some people who are warm, funny, intelligent, genuinely lovely, still keep everyone at a certain distance, like there is an invisible line, and no matter how close you get, they never quite let you past it?
Oh, yes, I have noticed that. And honestly, I think I have been that person at different points in my own life.
Same, and I think most people have been, because what we are really talking about is the fear of being truly known by another person.
And that fear, quiet as it is, shapes so many relationships, so many friendships, so many moments where real connection was right there and someone pulled back just before it could happen.
And today we want to understand why, because it is one of the most human and most painful contradictions we carry.
We deeply want to be known, and we are deeply afraid of it at the same time.
And that tension between wanting connection and fearing it is exactly what we are exploring today.
As always, we are doing this in clear, natural B2 level English. So just relax, follow the conversation, and let your English grow naturally as you listen.
And stay with us until the end for our word tour, where we slow down and explain the most useful words and phrases from today's conversation.
And before we begin, we would love to hear from you. Do you find it easy or hard to let people truly know you? Leave a comment. We really want to hear your honest answer.
All right, let's get into it.
So, Albert, let's start with the most basic question. Why would someone be afraid of being known? Because on the surface, being known sounds wonderful. Being understood, being seen, being accepted for who you really are.
It sounds like everything everyone wants.
Exactly, and it is what everyone wants. But wanting something and being willing to let yourself have it, those are two completely different things.
And I think the fear comes down to one core belief that a lot of people carry, sometimes without even realizing it.
Which is...
If people really knew me, the real me, not the version I show the world, they would not stay.
And that belief, quiet, often unspoken, often completely unconscious, changes everything.
Because if you believe that your real self is too much, or not enough, or somehow fundamentally unlovable, then letting someone close feels genuinely dangerous.
Because the closer they get, the more likely they are to see the thing you're most afraid of them seeing.
And then leaving.
And rejection from someone who truly knows you feels so much more painful than rejection from someone who only knew a surface version.
Because if they reject the surface version, you can always tell yourself, well, they didn't really know me. If they had known the real me, things would have been different.
But if someone knows the real you and still leaves, there's nowhere to hide from that.
And so, without fully deciding to, many people make a choice. They show enough of themselves to feel connected, but not enough to feel truly exposed.
They stay in the comfortable middle, present but protected, warm but walled off.
And from the outside, that can look like a normal, functioning relationship, a good friendship, a caring partnership.
But from the inside, it often feels hollow, like you are performing closeness rather than actually experiencing it.
And the loneliness of that, being close to people but not truly known by them, is one of the most specific and quietly painful kinds of loneliness there is.
And I think there's another layer to this that's worth naming honestly. A lot of people are afraid of being known because they don't fully accept themselves.
Yes, this one is so important.
Because it's very hard to let someone see something in you that you yourself cannot accept or make peace with.
If you're deeply ashamed of something, a past mistake, a part of your personality, a way you've behaved, a chapter of your life, the idea of someone else seeing it feels unbearable.
Because their reaction to it becomes a mirror, and if they react with judgment, it confirms the judgment you already have about yourself.
So you protect yourself by never showing it, never speaking it, keeping it somewhere small and dark where nobody, including sometimes yourself, has to look at it.
And that protection feels necessary. It feels like survival. But it also keeps you from the very thing that could heal it. Because often, when we finally share the thing we're most ashamed of, the person listening says something that changes everything.
They say, "I understand," or "I felt that too," or simply, "That doesn't change anything about how I see you."
And that response, that gentle human response, can undo years of quiet self-judgment in a single moment.
Because shame grows in silence, and it begins to lose its power the moment it's spoken out loud to someone safe.
But you have to be willing to speak it out, and that requires a kind of courage that nobody talks about enough.
The courage to be imperfect in front of someone else, the courage to be seen without the armor on.
And I think there's a third reason people hold back from being truly known, and it's one that sounds very practical but goes very deep.
Which is, they tried before and it didn't go well.
Yes, because for most people, the fear of being known is not theoretical, it's based on real experience.
They opened up to someone. They shared something real, something honest, something that cost them something to say.
And the other person used it against them, or pulled away, or responded with discomfort rather than understanding.
And the heart learned, very efficiently, very permanently.
It learned that wasn't safe. Don't do that again. Keep the real things closer. Show less.
And that lesson, as painful as it is, makes complete sense. It was a reasonable response to a real experience.
But the problem is, it doesn't distinguish between the person who hurt you and everyone else.
The wall goes up for everyone, even the people who would respond with care, even the people who are genuinely safe.
Because the heart can't always tell the difference, especially when it's still healing from the last time it tried.
So what helps? What actually moves people toward being a little more willing to be known?
I think the first thing is this: finding one safe person, just one, someone whose track record tells you this person can be trusted with something real.
Not someone you idealize, not someone you hope will be safe, someone who has already shown you, through small moments of honesty, that they can hold what you give them.
And starting small, not with the biggest, most vulnerable truth, but with something one step more honest than you would normally share.
And watching what happens, and letting that response, if it's a kind one, begin to rebuild what past hurt took away.
Because trust isn't rebuilt in one conversation. It's rebuilt in many small moments, over time, through consistency.
And the second thing, which I think is the hardest and most important, is beginning to practice self-acceptance.
Because you can't let someone else accept what you yourself cannot accept.
So the work often starts internally, slowly making peace with the parts of yourself you've been most ashamed of, slowly separating who you are from what you've done or what you've been through.
You are not your worst moment. You are not your deepest fear. You are not the story someone else once told about you.
And as that belief slowly, imperfectly begins to settle in, the fear of being known begins to loosen its grip just a little.
Just a little is always enough to start.
And the third thing, and this one I find quietly beautiful, is this: being the kind of person who makes others feel safe to be known.
Because safety is contagious. When you respond to someone's honesty with gentleness, when you receive what they share without judgment, you create something rare. A space where truth feels possible, where imperfection is welcome, where someone can finally exhale and say the thing they've been carrying alone.
And very often, when you create that space for someone else, they naturally create it back for you.
And suddenly, without a big dramatic moment, two people are actually known by each other.
And that's one of the rarest and most beautiful things two human beings can experience.
It really is. Okay, let's go into our word tour.
Let's do it.
First word, exposed. When you feel exposed, it means you feel vulnerable and unprotected, as if something private or sensitive about you has been seen or could be seen by others.
For example, sharing something deeply personal always carries a risk of feeling exposed. Or, She pulled back from the conversation because she started to feel too exposed. Repeat after us. Exposed.
Exposed.
Next, unconscious. Something that is unconscious happens without you being aware of it, below the level of conscious thought or deliberate choice.
For example, many of our fears about intimacy are unconscious. We act on them without realizing where they come from. Or, his unconscious belief that he was unlovable shaped every relationship he had. Repeat. Unconscious.
Unconscious.
Next, armor. In emotional language, armor refers to the protective behaviors or attitudes people use to guard themselves from being hurt or truly seen.
For example, humor can be a form of armor, a way of keeping conversations light and people at a safe distance. Or, she had worn emotional armor for so long she had almost forgotten it was there. Repeat. Armor.
Armor.
Next, shame. Shame is a deep and painful feeling that something about you, not just something you did, but who you are, is fundamentally wrong, bad, or unworthy.
For example, shame grows in silence and loses its power when finally spoken out loud. Or, the fear of being known is very often rooted in shame about something we have not yet made peace with. Repeat. Shame.
Shame.
Next, track record. A track record is the history of someone's past behavior or actions, used as evidence of how they are likely to behave in the future.
For example, before opening up to someone, it helps to look honestly at their track record of how they handle what people share with them. Or, trust is built through a consistent track record of small, honest moments. Repeat. Track record.
Track record.
Next, self-acceptance. Self-acceptance means fully acknowledging who you are, including your flaws, past mistakes, and imperfections, without harsh judgment or the need to be different.
For example, it is very difficult to let someone else accept what you yourself cannot accept, which is why self-acceptance is so foundational to genuine connection. Or, self-acceptance does not mean you stop growing. It means you stop punishing yourself for being human. Repeat. Self-acceptance.
Self-acceptance.
And finally, contagious. When something is contagious, it spreads easily from one person to another, not just illness, but emotions, behaviors, and atmospheres too.
For example, safety is contagious. When one person responds to honesty with gentleness, it often makes the other person feel safe enough to be honest too. Or, laughter and calm are both contagious in the best possible way. Repeat. Contagious.
Contagious.
And those were today's word tour words and phrases.
Together, they capture everything we explored today: the fear of being truly known, where that fear comes from, and the quiet courage it takes to let someone pass the wall we have built around ourselves.
And wherever you are today, whether you are someone who finds it easy to open up or someone who keeps most people at a careful distance, you are not broken. You are human, and you are doing the best you can with what life has taught you so far.
And that is always enough to start from.
This is Albert.
And this is Mary. Thank you so much for listening to LeapTalk English. We will see you in the next one.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.